Are we a medicated America? Well, you know we are. And I'm going to spend the next couple of minutes telling you how we got here. You know, it is not pretty. But first up, some basic but very important facts. Fact 1. Just under 70% of Americans are on some kind of prescription medication. In that 70%, we include mom, dad, the kids, and grandparents. Everybody. And the second fact, those partaking in over-the-counter medications, that number is just under half of all Americans, regardless of age. And those two facts make for a pretty nice profit margin for the pharmaceutical industry here in America. One that has made some people pretty damn rich off the pain, misery, and suffering of Americans. So yeah, we absolutely are a medicated society. And now's the time to start talking about how we got here, all fucked up. And yeah, we are all fucked up, because being fucked up is a state of mind here in America. The history of our love for aspirin and Viagra begins back in our colonial days, as it was born out of our war for independence. That's right, the blockades of the Revolutionary War forced the colonials to start producing their own medicines. And back in the day, you wouldn't find any aspirin on the shelf, but if you had a headache, you might be recommended a bit of willow bark, or perhaps a topical oil made up of vinegar and crushed nettle. And if you needed help with your hard-on, you'd be prescribed some bloodroot or arum. And while I use the word prescribed, you didn't need no doctor's prescription, because that wasn't a thing till the 1950s. That's right, you could walk into a drugstore and just buy whatever medication you wanted for all your ailments. And while the Revolutionary War had an impact on the availability of medications of the day, it was the War of 1812 that revolutionized the pharmaceutical industry here in America. That war with the British forced an end to our reliance on foreign medications and led to the industrialization of the American pharmaceutical industry. In other words, where doctors themselves once pounded and grounded out their own medications in their back rooms, that was all replaced by whole-scale manufacturers. While the first true pharmaceutical industrial plant was opened in Pennsylvania way back in 1777, it was a half-century later when the industry really took off. And by the time the Civil War rolled around, the industry was ready to explode, and explode it did. And now is a good time to recognize the trend that war played in the growth of us becoming a medicated society. And yeah, World War II was exceptional in its contribution, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But first, we have to talk about the influence of snake oil and its like. Today, we regard anybody selling us what we know as bullshit, be it an actual product that is nothing but bullshit, or information that is just bullshit. That person that's doing the selling is known as someone that's selling snake oil. Just to get the history straight, the term originated in the Old West. The original snake oil was brought to this country by the Chinese, and yeah, it worked as an anti-inflammatory. The Chinese used their version of snake oil to rub into their sore muscles after a long, hard day working on our railroads. It wasn't too much longer before unscrupulous men started making up their own tonics. Tonics often comprised of opium, cocaine, and even arsenic. This new brand of quacks started selling their tonics from western town to dusty western town, and people ate the tonics up, and yeah, loaded with coke and opium, we don't wonder why. That quackery came to an end in 1906 with the passing of the Pure Food and Drug Act. But that law wasn't passed because of all the quackery. The law was passed due to Upton Sinclair's novel, The Jungle, a novel that exposed the filth and unsanitary conditions of a meatpacking plant. And the public, they were all absolutely horrified at what they were reading when they came to understanding the conditions under which the food they were eating was being processed. And yeah, the new law was also applied to the pharmaceutical industry, requiring appropriate labeling and ending ineffective treatments. With the new law in a brand spanking new century, Changes in the pharmaceutical industry were everywhere. In fact, the 20th century would see a massive transition for the world of pharmacology. First, there would be a move away from natural remedies to those that were synthetic. That happened because of people like John Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, two super rich industrialists who believed in the scientific method as opposed to the herbal approach. And yeah, they also realized there was a lot of money to be made. Andrew Carnegie funded what is known as the Flexner Report. The author of this report studied 155 medical schools and recommended a strong scientific background that included biology, physics, and chemistry for anyone that applied to those schools. The report also standardized curriculum and turned the pharmaceutical industry away from profit-oriented trade schools to research-oriented universities. And with the report came a lot more new regulation. And as a side note, most of the 155 schools that Abraham Flexner visited closed because they couldn't meet the new standards. And with that said, the next big thing in the pharmaceutical industry was World War II. And that's because the need back then was to treat millions of soldiers, which led to mass production of drugs like penicillin. And here we are today, 75 years after the Great War. All of us depended on some kind of medication contributing to what is nearing $1 trillion industry. And with that said, maybe we ought to take a closer look at some of those old herbal remedies. The Medicated America. Yeah. Just so everybody understands, I am not an anti-vaccine person. I believe medicines do wonders. But that's not what I'm talking about. What this video is simply about is man, everybody's on some kind of medication. And that just can't be good for a country. I mean, I guess I didn't look at the age groups and who's taken what percent, and maybe the elderly eat up a lot of that percentage. I don't know. I should have looked at that. That was a thought that came to mind. Interesting. But you know what? Maybe that's a topic I can look at down the road to explore this a little bit. But the entire history of the pharmaceutical industry is basically built on war. When you think, when you look at the history, not so much from the point of view that I lost my mind. I lost my track there. But what I was going to say is that they didn't need the medications. Yes, they did. That makes sense. Okay, I'm going to shut up. Too many shots of tequila in these afterplugs. I don't know. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. And don't forget your 8 p.m. meds.